Hey, this is the mountain and today we are in Black Prince Circle Trail and we're here to pick up medicine herbs and wild edibles, so on the little course. Awesome.
Little bark.
So that's kind of the interior bark, you kind of split it off?
Right, yeah, not the outer, the outer smooth bark, but the brown inner bark. So you'd need something thick enough like the stem, the trunk, as opposed to a branch, to be able to peel off a little chunk of the inner brown bark underneath. So it'd actually be there's like the heartwood, the cambium, so it's the next layer before the bark, or the one right inside after the bark. So very, very useful.
And you recognize it because of the...
there's many species of willow in Alberta, but typically, one of the typical species, this is what we would call a lance-shaped leaf. So long, skinny spear point is basically the idea. And all plants, you need to be able to recognize them by their leaves, because most medical plants, or edible, you're going to use often before the flower comes. So you have to be able to identify them. Another way to get this kind of a catkin on the cottonwood trees as well. And then they just open up and the fluff comes out, and there's lots of them. And Achilles, because it was said that Achilles' mother dipped him in the oil of this plant, yarrow oil, which made him invincible. But of course she held him by his Achilles tendon, which is why it was his weak spot. And Achilles used this plant to heal the soldiers in the Battle of Troy. And this plant has a chemical in it that's a blood coagulant. So if one of us fell and stabbed ourselves and were bleeding prolifically, we'd run around and grab as many of these leaves as we could, roll it into a ball, and rolling it is what you do to kind of release the juices out of it, and the chemicals. And then you would take that rolled ball of yarrow, put it on the plant, and then wrap it down as a compress, put a bandage on it. And within 2 minutes it'll stop the bleeding, unless it's a super prolific bleeding, it'll take longer. So it'll stop the bleeding, plus it'll actually aid in the healing process. You can just leave it on there. If you had a nosebleed, I know some people get nosebleeds quite quickly, you could take a couple of these, roll them in a ball, put them up your nose, and you can stop your nosebleed. Also, if you get headaches, take a few leaves of these, put them up your nose, and it can cause a nosebleed, but it can relieve the pressure on a headache. But when I've had headache, I'm not interested in causing a nosebleed, so what I do instead is I just take a bunch of them, and I do squish the leaves and just inhale it quite a bit, and I find that it actually does take that sort of that, when you get a really hard headache, it's like it takes that real hard edge off, and then I can kind of survive.
Huh.
Yeah. I actually tried willow bark once for a headache, but I think I needed to steep it, not just chew it. Oh. Helps with relieving headaches, for smelling the arnica oil. But as an ointment, if you have friends that bruise easily, I know a few people that bruise easily, putting arnica oil ointment on it really helps. Or if someone sprained their ankle today even, well, not that I could make an ointment out of the flower, but I probably would try doing a mushing and pounding, and again, if we weren't in a provincial park or whatever, mushing and pounding the flower, making it soft, and letting it sit in the sun a few minutes, because the sun does a chemical process on it that helps bring out the chemicals.
For the arnica leaf?
Yeah, the arnica, no, the flower.
Oh, the yellow one.
Yeah, the yellow flower, yeah.
I spell arnica, A-R?
A-R-N-I-C-A, yeah.
And it's the flower and the stem, right?
That's right. A flower and the root.
And the root, okay.
Yeah, flower and the root. I think they probably had some, I don't know what, but some way of preparing it so it wasn't totally
Which leaf are we looking
tickly.
So it's a small ball leaf, like a blueberry or something?
Yeah, it's a little purple tiny berry. If I see any growing, I'll stop and let you know. And then last are high in a lot more nutrients because of the soil composition that they grow in. So it'll have vitamin C, vitamin D, probably calcium in this kind of soil, lots of the nutrients.
So it's later in the fall and the leaves have drooped?
No, you can pick the leaves anytime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can pick them anytime. I was just trying to give you a description, because often the visuals...
What was the plant beside it that you said wasn't...
This one's called false azalea, and it often looks like a really yummy berry and everything, but it won't kill you, it'll just make you sick. So but you can see again, well, and yes, and you can pick the best time for the leaf. So again, think about that life cycle thing, the root, the stem, the leaf, the flower. So what comes first, the leaf or the flower? The leaves. So they're going to be more potent with all the nutrients in them before the flower. So now actually for me this is quite interesting. It's the first time I've come at it. In fir, notice how the needles tend to be sitting on the top side. They're not really growing out the bottom. You see that on a branch? On spruce, the needles will grow all the way around the branch, and the needles will be square. So I invite you, we'll all go to a different tree. Just grab a needle from the fir, a single needle. Pluck it off. That tree's fine. I just didn't want to all do it from the same tree. And you can feel, like rub your hand along it, and you can feel that the needle's flat. And that one, the new growth on that one you can still use for your tea or whatever. You can see it's still that bright green, it's still softer than the rest, so you could use that.
So
Now this tree right here next to it is a spruce. So come on down here and pluck a needle off there. And you can also see that the needles are growing even on the bottom of the branch. And roll it between your thumb and forefinger. Yeah, can you feel the edges as you roll it? So these needles are square. So spruce is square, and it's spiky to shake hands with, and fir is flat and friendly to shake hands with.
Spruce has got rough scales and the fir's got a smooth.
That's right. Yeah, and pine grow in pairs.
So we have spruce trees in our backyard, but we always would say, oh, pine trees, spruce.
That's because people don't know.
I say evergreen.
And
Evergreen,
in a
exactly.
few years the tip is dying off.
Oh, really?
Maybe a good spot.
You guys had a good day. So this place when you're snowshoeing is really cool. Is like a wild celery. So yeah, the stalk's very edible. But again, right now it's about to burst into flower, so the life force energy is no longer in the stalk, so it'll be like a tough, like celery wilts. If you left celery, it would also get super tough. So a very celery-like plant. Once this flower, it'll grow up quite tall, this flower, and be a big round umbrella of white. And when it does that, the stalk that it's on will also be edible, and it also tastes a bit like a super potent organic celery. So my favorite way to cook cow parsnip stalks is with feta cheese. They're hollow stems, so you can just stuff